Good morning, Bucknutters. A little bit late today, Thursday, April 3rd, 2025. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning Five and Change. This podcast covers your national champions. I'll be joined shortly here by the Dean, Bill Kurlick, and the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. We are going to discuss plenty. Ohio State. I said last show, we had 3 straight shows where we had gotten a commitment. Sort of to today, and we will go into that, and it's a biggie. And we were also going to take a look at a running back they have offered, a local. Mark's going to break him down in his Buckeye and the Sky. Got a lot of great stuff coming for you today. First, I've got to tell you about Mando Pure, which is brought to you by Timeline, a brilliant new sponsor we have for the show that helps your gut health. It's a supplement. It supports your health, the foundation, by encouraging cellular renewal. Precise dose of the rare postbiotic, and I'm reading this here because it's a hard word, urothalin A, which is a essential cellular cleanup process that clears out dysfunctional mitochondria, aka your cell's battery packs. This is for your gut health. You'll be at your best, most energized, and most revitalized. It promotes cellular renewal, mitochondrial health to address common signs of aging at the root. And by that, I mean the root. Awaken the strength, power, and resilience already in you with the first and only supplement clinically proven to rejuvenate health at the cellular level. We're not messing around here. These are life-affirming supplements. You go to Timeline. I realize that's a different name. Timeline, timeline.com/Bucknuts. And you get 10% off your first order of Mando Pure. So that's Timeline. timeline.com/Bucknuts. 10% off your first order. Tell them Bucknuts sent you. All right. Bill Kurlick, Mark Porter. I was telling the people in the intro, guys, that it was the last 3 shows, we had a fresh commitment to discuss each time we came out here. And that's not totally true now, but it may be more impactful. Interesting that we got the Blaine Bradford commitment earlier this week, and everyone said, "Oh, wake me at signing day. He's a guy from Louisiana. He's not going to really come here." Well, I'm not sure as much was said about that when Chris Henry Jr. was in the 8th grade in Cincinnati. Somewhere along the line there, he committed to Ohio State early enough that you had to go searching for what year he actually was, because we were like 2 classes ahead. And then he's transferred to modern day, and we were told, oh, no chance now. Oregon or one of the former Pac-12 schools is going to swoop in and get him. And then as we got this recruiting process going, or this cycle going, he had scheduled some visits. Uncle Phil was looming, and then lo and behold, he announced earlier this week he has shut down his recruitment. Chris Henry is going to – Bill, is Chris Henry going to break the all-time record for longest commitment to come through? And we should reaffirm just how good he is. I know sometimes when a guy commits early, and this was epically early, we lose a little bit of interest as we go because new is better. Let's get back to basics here. Chris Henry, one of the best receivers not playing in the NFL right now. That's how good he is, Bill. Take it away. Explain kind of the recruitment process and how it ended, and then Mark will let us know just how good he is on film.
Well, he is in Ohio, and he's from Ohio, and played for Cincinnati Withrow, and he was coming off a really good season there, but he ended up leaving Withrow and heading to California. And he has been there at Modern Day High School. And, it was interesting when he committed, it was the summer of 2023. And he was at what was an Ohio State event. I think they called it at that time. It was late July. It was during that little period where you have a 5-day period approximately of where kids can come back on campus at the end of July. And I believe they called it their fun day that year. So he was at that fun day event, and there were a lot of us waiting to talk to recruits that were at that fun day after it ended. So we're kind of all standing around, and Chris Henry was not an Ohio State commitment at that point. Well, or so we thought. So he comes out, and I know Chris pretty well. I had gone to see him in person several times at different events, and he came walking out, and I just asked him. I said, Chris, how's things going? And just kind of chatting, and I said, well, are you getting even close to thinking about a decision here, and so on, and the people that he was with kind of were standing behind me a little bit back, and they yelled, go ahead, Chris. Tell him, Chris. Go ahead, Chris. And Chris gets a big smile on his face, and he says, well, I committed to Ohio State just now. And that's how kind of the story broke. Obviously, all the other media people there had their microphones up really fast then. And Chris Henry talked about committing to Ohio State. It was late July, maybe July 26th or something like that of 2023. And he's been committed ever since. But as you mentioned, Dan, he's been kind of, I don't know if I'd say flirting, but he's been visiting other schools and all. And he had official visits set to Oregon, USC, and Miami. But lo and behold, he, on April 1st, and it was no Fool's Day joke, he announced that he was shutting down his recruitment, canceling those other visits, would absolutely sign with Ohio State and would not take any other visits. So that is fantastic news. As we've talked about on this show ad nauseum, all three of us have had an agreement that as long as Brian Hartline and Ryan Day at Ohio State, Chris Henry's not going anywhere. And he just kind of made it officially, unofficially official, I guess.
Semi-official?
Yeah, that he is definitely no longer looking. He's going to sign with Ohio State, and that's great news for the Buckeyes.
Great news for him, too, that he doesn't have to worry about this for his senior year. There's nothing like your senior year of athletics in terms of enjoyment, and you'll never be, I don't care how good you are, you'll never be as good as you are compared to the competition that senior year. So he gets to focus on that and just enjoy himself. Good for him. I don't even need to go into detail about the team he's on, considering the fact we've offered the other wide receiver, Caden Wyatt Dixon, or Caden Dixon Wyatt, one of the two. I will get that right the next time I say it.
Caden Dixon
I'll
Wyatt.
memorize everything. Dixon Wyatt. It feels like it should be Wyatt Dixon to me. I don't know why that is. But is it Mark Bowman, the tight end? Bill, is that correct?
Yeah, he's a great player. I know quarterback Edmonds, Brady Edmonds. He is working on him. Brady, of course, is committed to Ohio State, but I don't necessarily see that happening. But he's a great player, and Brady Edmonds would love to have him join him at Ohio State.
Modern day might be better than the Raiders, okay, talent-wise. I'm not even kidding. I don't want to get too hyperbolic, but I'm telling you right now.
Don't do that. Don't do that to Brock Bowers.
I didn't talk about that. That's still, think about this for a second. If you could have the four guys we just mentioned at modern day, the two receivers, the tight end, and the quarterback for the next 20 years, or the four guys who are now on the Raiders who play those same positions, it would be a tough call. That's how good they are. Mark, let's take it away here with Chris Henry as we hyperbolize.
Yeah, we did this breakdown a few weeks ago, and Bill talked about him being originally in Cincinnati, West Claremont to Withrow to Mater Dei, and then I feel the devastation because he was hurt junior year. So there's only about 3 clips from his junior year, and then he had the knee injury, and then we finished this video with some clips. So this video goes back to West Claremont High School before he was even at Withrow. This is him as a true freshman in high school the night I saw him. Of course, this is a long 6'5" receiver. The comparison is his father. I mean, I actually put on his father's highlight tape, and boy, I mean, just to go back and see the Hushmanzada and Ocho Cinco and, the ilk he was with and the future and upside of his dad, you get so excited. And I can't stress enough that, give a national championship to Coach Day and Coach Hartline, and the amount of first-round draft picks at receiver that have come out of Ohio State the last couple of years, is there anywhere else this kid could possibly go and think he's going to get a better deal? It's like there isn't a better place on earth right now to be a receiver than at Ohio State, and that's show me another run that anybody else is on right now. So to add this kid to the mix, and no wonder this is just going to be another piece to the puzzle. He'll get stronger. I can't wait to see him when he's done with this rehab, how he looks. I know someone else who's going through rehab and how much they're going to focus on his lower body for the next 6 months, and he should come out of this pretty good. So I'll be excited to see him senior year. In this video we had some clips of him on 7-on-7 and doing different things. I mean, his hand-eye and ball skills to go with that frame give him a catch radius also second to none.
John Gorby woke up on the other side of the bed today. Something I did wrong. He didn't even give me details. Come on, John. What I say wrong there? We need to get to that. Yeah, Henry, like you said, I think you could make a strong argument that wide receiver at Ohio State is the number one known and regarded position group of any college football team right now, which certainly doesn't hurt. And they're not on the way to getting worse. Let's just put it that way. Every year we go back to look at it, I just can't even believe it. And the idea that, by the way, Jeremiah Smith, this isn't his last year in Columbus coming up. As much as your brain will probably tell you that, it's not. It's incredible.
If Emeka can slide into the first round, boy, does that just keep things red, white hot, whatever you want to say, with the amount of first rounders. So I don't care if Emeka slides in at 31 or 32. Just get him in that first round.
Emeka might go higher than that. I think I'm serious, and the Cowboys are really considering him at 12. I know that they've given off hints that they're going to pick a receiver in the first round to complement CeeDee Lamb. And when you hear people talk about the interesting thing about Igbukah is I think being the number 2 guy at Ohio State has gotten people to think he's less talented than he is. There's talk about like his speed and stuff. Like, listen, man, there's no issues with Emeka's physical play. He can run with the wind. I mean, he's going to run what? 4. He's a 4.4 guy, high 4.3s, low 4.4s. He's just played next to such great receivers that everyone says, oh, he's a number 2 guy. That's not necessarily, and we just said number 2 at Ohio State. You got to do the conversion rate to other programs. Works out to a 1. I don't have any issues with Emeka. And by the way, if you want to invest in a human being, he can. I mean, I cannot. Whatever the number one guy, personality, effort, guy wise, he's that. So I'm very interested in that. All right. Let's talk, Bill, about Favour-ed, the running back from Delaware Hayes. Has an offer from Ohio State. Very impressive. Thought we were on commitment watch for a while, and then things may have changed, but he's coming back this weekend. He is the focus of Mark's Buckeye and the Sky this week. So, Mark, back-to-back Mark, without Bill talking for 3 minutes, may set us off our axis here. But let's take a quick look at Favour-ed, and Bill, then you can give us all the updates. And Mark, as you're doing this, of course, your genius insight.
So we have watched Favour-ed going back for about 4 or 5 months since week 2 of the season. We keep watching his same huddle tape, and I think we get through 4 or 6 plays, and we're all wild. And so I want to do something a little different to prove what a big-time athlete he is. I started off his film with his defensive ability. This kid is a major recruit on the defensive side of the ball. If he ever chose to and wanted to play defense, he could be a middle linebacker at any school in the country. I mean, just look at the range he has, and he arrives with the nasty attitude. So if he ever did come in as a second running back and he had to flip sides, no problem. Now, at running back, I think my evaluation is he is thunder and lightning. Okay, if he's going to come in around 200 pounds, boy, he brings it through the middle. But you see the sprinter speed. So he's that type of guy he's the single back. You don't need to, have 2 different types of backs to do what he does. The power clips of him are coming, but just to see him on all these breakaway runs, and it's a quality competition schedule. I mean, they play some big schools down in Columbus, and there's some secondaries that have players that can run. We put some passing plays in him, so we know we can catch it out of the backfield. But the shot out of the gun speed to go with the in between the tackles power, and I know Dan will probably shut it off right when we get into those runs. But yeah, he really does. Like they say, how many guys are that true bell cow back that can handle the in between the tackles and the outside? Akee brings that to the table, and especially when you're considered the 200 pounds of weight. I think he's a little heavier than that 190 he's listed at. But be interesting to see him at camp this summer, and if he does commit to the Buckeye soon, I know Bill probably has an update on him visiting.
Hold on a sec. Brass Tack says Akee really likes the beauty and lure of Coral Gables. This is not a joke. My friend has a son who's being academically recruited by the U and was there this past weekend. They can recruit down there, okay? They got a lot to show you, and it means exactly what you think. Bill, take it away.
Yeah, it's with Akee, as you mentioned, Dan. We talked about him possibly when he visited Ohio State recently about possibly being on commitment watch. That didn't happen. Afterwards, I was told that this is probably going to go till about May. But then the other day, Favor let it be known that he was going to get back to Ohio State this weekend. So with him coming back to Ohio State this weekend, we start thinking again, is a commitment possible? It's kind of interesting. After Blaine Bradford committed to Ohio State earlier on, I guess that was Tuesday, I believe. After Blaine Bradford committed to Ohio State, I did a article, who may be next to commit to the Buckeyes. And I had on there CJ Santa as a possibility at the top, the linebacker from Montangy. I had, I think, Braylon Womack at the top. I had Simeon Caldwell at the top, and I had some others going down that list. But I didn't have Favour-ed on there. And that was because Favour-ed, as far as at that point, was not planning to get back to Ohio State still this spring. But then, as I mentioned, lo and behold, Favored announced that he was going to get back to Ohio State this weekend. So with that in mind, I think you got to, again, be aware of, will he end up being a commitment by the end of the weekend? The guys that have committed to Ohio State recently have all been guys that have visited Ohio State and then announced that day on the visit, or right as the visit was winding up, or right after the visit. In the case of Tucker Smith, it was, I think, a day or so after the visit that they were committing to the Buckeyes. So with Favour-ed returning, you got to be aware of him being at Ohio State again this weekend. He's a 6 foot, 190-pound running back that right now has official visits set to Ohio State, USC, and Miami. That's his final 3, and he is going to be back in Columbus on Saturday.
Mark, do you agree that you think he'll eventually be about 6 foot? I would say like 205, which to me is prototype running back size. I know a lot of people like the 5'9", 210 guy now. To me, the 6 foot, 205, do it all kind of. And I'm also racking my memory banks here. I don't know if we actually have had that guy. I'm sure the thread here will let me know, but I'm thinking like Zeke was much thicker than that. Boom Herron didn't have the explosiveness, wasn't as big. Trey Sermon was a little bigger. JK wasn't 6 foot. I'm trying to just kind of go through the guys here. But I really like that. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we're sharing a brain on that. When I was looking for the comp, I was like, man, there's a little Boom Herron, maybe a little Dobbins. He looks like a miniature Beanie Wells. He has a little bit of an upright style, but he's nowhere near that big or rugged, as Beanie Wells. So it's tough to find the exact comp, but you're right. This 190 pounds could turn into 200. There's a picture of him he uploaded when he registered on Scouting Ohio, where he has his shirt off, and he is absolutely ripped in a way where there's no fat on his body.
Right.
So natural. So he's at the beginning of his development. He'll, like say, when you get to be 21, you get your grown man strength.
Mm-hmm.
As that part of his body develops, he's going to be a 200-pounder, give or take. I don't see him losing the speed. I mean, he's really looks good with his pads on running. And I mean, a lot of kids, the extra weight of pads when they're, can slow them down. He looks like he's a strong runner. There were some great runs we didn't watch where he had balance and was spinning, and the contact balance is there. And that speaks to how well he's built in his lower body to take those type of shots.
By the way, I talked about that article I had earlier this week about the next to commit. As soon as Favour-ed announced that he would be at Ohio State again this weekend, I quickly added him to that article.
Sure. We know you're on top of it, Bill.
Before
we move on.
These guys making their visits, that's kind of been the trademark of the spring. Make a visit, and you if Ohio State wants you, if you make a visit to Ohio State, you are on commitment watch.
Yeah. Yeah, especially now because it's a transactional business. So if you get there, they may already like your price, but we digress. Mark, before we get off Favour-ed key, and I tell everyone how they can smell great with Mando, how do you view him long-term in pass protection and as a receiver out of the backfield? And I might add, Travion Henderson did not arrive here as a tremendous blocker or receiver. And getting back to the draft chatter, he is being lauded for that now. Both Ohio State backs are being lauded as two of, if not the two best pass protecting backs in the game. So, Mark, blocker and pass receiver, that is Favour-ed.
I did have a series of catches on him out of the backfield. There were, 6 or 8 of them on his highlight film. Not a lot of them went for a lot of distance. And when you make a highlight film like this, and there's all these 60, 70, 80-yard touchdown runs, you seem to have those in the film over some of the dirty work, so to speak. So there were receiving skills. But, out of high school, I mean, I don't think I've ever broken down a running back that really had like a 50-catch season where you see him line up in the slot, running choice routes, running seams, and, you get a wheel route every now and then, and double that for pass blocking. I mean, boy, how many schemes call for, kids to pass block? Every now and then you'll see a running back put a couple of his good blocks on film. And, even those are so random. And I'm talking in the history of me breaking down running backs. So in a huddle film, you're not going to see the blocking. And Dan, you hope that when he gets on campus, like those other guys you made examples of, that, the pass blocking goes there. Now, the running style, as you see him put his shoulder down and strike people, that's where you see, okay, he has a willingness to put his head in there. He's not afraid. It's not like he's always running for daylight or running out of bounds or, that type of runner. He's a contact runner. So it wouldn't be a far stone's throw to see him line up in pass protection, but pass protection's an art form. I mean, you really, that takes reps, and that may take a redshirt year to really handle the size that's coming at you at some of those positions too. A 230-pound linebacker coming full speed is a different animal than what you're going to see in high school. So even if you did have a nice reel of pass blocking in high school, it's still going to be a change of pace when you get to college.
I had a major coach tell me that how everyone deals with that, what you just said, the 230-pound linebacker coming at you, is also how you decide if the left tackle's tough enough. It's every position is how they deal with that. Because, for example, if you're a left tackle of great size and the blind side size, how many guys do you go up against in high school that are really as big as you? And the guys that are right in front of you usually can control. When you're 18 or 19 and get to college, and a 22-year-old grown man who's got kids is the middle linebacker at 230 and he runs straight into you, you're going to find out if you like college football or not. And apparently they can tell on a left tackle, and there's several of them who I've told were like, day one, they're like, this ain't going to work. Bad sign. All right.
Who is one of the best, if not the best, pass blocking running back for the Buckeyes?
Listen, and let me tell you something.
This is easy, Dan. You should get this one.
I'm going to give a stat. When the Cowboys evaluated him, he did not miss a block in college.
Zeke Elliott.
And not only did he not miss it, guys started going around him because they were going to get the helmet under the chin and 225 pounds in the butt. And there was someone even asked here about Zeke as a freshman. I was actually at Zeke's first open practice, and the thing I mentioned about him was he's taller than I thought, and his lower body was, as a freshman, He needed the wide seats on the plane, if you know what I'm saying.
No skinny jeans.
No, dude. And listen, Zeke came from a great Missouri linebacker and a great Missouri track star. So his pedigree was ridiculous, and he was fantastic. You know what's also great and leaves you smelling good? Mando, one of our best sponsors. Bill will tell you all the nooks and crannies as you get older. There's more nooks and there's more crannies, and you need to get it in there. Mando, full body deodorant. Reduces, prevents sweat, 100% natural, organic, fragrance, and oil-free. It is special stuff. You want to do – I've used it, especially when you're going out for a long day and you get those smells and spots you shouldn't get. They help. There's a lot of words on here I'm not going to say out loud because I don't want to offend Bill, but we got a special offer going right now. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code and link. Use Bucknuts at shopmando.com, shopmando.com, and use the code Bucknuts. You will get, what's the deal here? $5 off your starter pack with our exclusive code, and that equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Bucknuts at shopmando.com. All right, I've got a theory I want to try it out on you guys, and I'm kind of ambushing you here. But we are good at digressing and waxing poetic, so I think we'll be in good shape. We used to have a theory, Bill, that if you were from Ohio and you received an offer from Ohio State, you were going to Ohio State for the most part. There are guys who have not done that. I know Cincinnati, sometimes they call it the state of Cincinnati, and, you know, some Catholic school kids. I remember there was a Liam Eichenberg season from Ignatius, and he went to Notre Dame, and that happens. I think Jackson Carman went to Clemson. But for the most part, if you look back at history, they have a very, very high hit rate. Already in this rotation or recruiting cycle, we've had guys who I would consider not first options. And by that, I'm not trying to be negative, but as Bill said, there are 5 stars and there are 5 stars. So Ohio State has targets, and then they have targets. The guys who are not the targets in Ohio, but the next level, used to wait it out. And they would wait. They would fight out for the offers, maybe go to camp. And even if they had the offer, at the end, they would usually come around to Ohio State or fight for it. Now, Caden Gebhardt did not wait around. And we saw Storm Miller did not wait around. He's going to Texas A&M. It's not common for 2 guys to leave the state of Ohio for those spots. But guess what? The money is finite now. So they're not just getting an offer to go to Clemson. Well, Clemson's different. I don't know how much they're paying. But Texas A&M, they're not saying to Storm, wait it out. They're saying, here's the check. Okay? So the idea of waiting it out when someone's offering you money from a finite thing, you're not waiting that out anymore. You're immediately going to weather in. Ohio State is going to actually take you and use you. Is this a trend, Bill? Do you see this going too much further? Because if you look, they've never lost 2 linebackers they've offered in the same class that they wanted. And I don't sense the overall angst about it because it's not realistic to ask someone to sit around and wait. Do you kind of understand what I'm asking here, Bill? And are we going to have less Ohioans in the class? I mean, we used to have a date when Ohio State would hold their last camp of the year. And if you didn't commit to Ohio State then, we knew you were going to Michigan State. So what is it? Are the mid-tier guys, and by mid-tier, I mean mid-tier of Ohio State offers, are they going to head elsewhere now? So we're just going to have the cream of the crop? Or do you see guys waiting? I just don't see guys being willing to wait it out now.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say right now because I don't like to base things on just one season, for instance.
Okay.
If it happens 2 or 3 seasons, then I think you got something maybe. But I think kind of like I say about recruits individually, they make their own decisions. They're not influenced so much by what a teammate is doing or whatever. And when it all comes down to it, they make the decisions best for them. And there's so many different factors. How big is NIL to one kid? It may not be as big to one kid as it is to another. How big is proximity? How big is family in your consideration? They all have their different reasons for making their decisions. So, and NIL with big time recruits is almost always important, but it's not. It still has different levels for different kids of importance. It's going to be important for most kids that are big time, but it's not all exactly the same. So I hate to base something on just one season. Let's see how things play out in a year or two from now before we decide on that.
Mark, your thoughts?
I think there is a trend, and I was just kind of scanning some of these commitments. We lost Sean Alston to USC from Painesville Harvey. William Conroy's going to Oklahoma. Cogden to Miami, Florida, and we lost the 2 to Clemson. Guthrie and Gebhardt.
I don't count Guthrie in this because I think Guthrie they really wanted. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I wasn't
saying, time out. I want to be I don't want to offend anybody. Okay. I'm not saying they didn't really want the other guys. I'm just saying, Brad, I apologize. Brad does not like it when you mess up with recruiting information. I'm just saying that Caden Gebhardt, I just think Caden Gebhardt and Storm Miller are 2 guys in the past that would have waited it out. It's easier to wait something out when someone over here isn't offering you X $100,000, and I don't know the number. I'm just speculating, but I'm just saying we're not going to get that guy anymore. I'm not saying that's even a terrible situation. It's just kind of an observation. Go ahead, Mark.
And I don't even think I was speaking in those terms. I think I was just saying this is a lot of early commitments to places that aren't as traditional. Because I track, offers going back, 20 years now. We don't have a lot of Clemson or Oklahoma commits over the year, or USC commits, or Miami of Florida, and it's coinciding with NIL. And I know I've talked about this before, where part of these NIL packages are, if you're giving the kid $100,000 or $200,000, there's a package in there for the parents to come visit every weekend at a hotel or a condo or something of their liking, and the air travel and stuff. So in the past, any of these schools that wanted a kid, it was like, well, how do these parents ever see these kids play? They're going to go broke after their freshman or sophomore year, flying back and forth to games. Now that really has been negated, and it's almost turned into a plus thing. We're like, hey, we get a 4-star trip every weekend to a different city, first class, and we're rolling in style, and it's not coming out of our pocket. So we can work our 9-to-5 job like a blue collar worker, let's say, and we have these gold star weekends where we're traveling around the country, where if you were a blue collar worker, you weren't a jet setter on the weekends. That wasn't your lifestyle, so NIL has definitely put these schools in play like never before, and vice versa. We got our Louisiana commit, and we were shocked at that. Well, his parents now have a way to come to Columbus every weekend. So this street's going to go both ways, but NIL is changing that mid-major tier. You've identified it they don't have to stick close to Ohio, because why were they staying close to Ohio? Well, my parents and friends will see me every weekend.
I'll work on this. I think it's time to take Brad national and go viral, but I digress. Yeah, it's just very interesting to me because as I sit and go through Mark the list of guys we want to do videos on, our goal is to get through all of the Ohio guys first, and the guys I had on my list that were down the list, we never got to them. Caden Gebhardt, Storm Miller, those guys we were getting to, they've committed, so they've saved Mark cutting room floor effort. But still, it's never happened before. In the past, when I would do this, I could literally line up the names and take the Ohio guys and put them at the back and not worry about it, because I'm like, oh, these guys aren't going anywhere. Let's talk about Blaine Bradford and his book. No longer. And you know what? I can't say I blame those dudes. Also, the money is getting to the point where I can tell you for basketball, it's ridiculous what's going on with the NIL. I could do a whole show on that. Good gracious. All right.
Also, keep in mind that, especially with Ohio kids, just because they committed somewhere else doesn't mean Ohio State cannot continue to recruit them. And perhaps, if they really want to, change their minds down the road.
See, that's interesting to me, because I wonder if that's actually the case, because I think when these guys are committing, there's at least some, I don't know if they're signing a contract, but there's some discussion of money. And whenever there's a discussion of money, it's a little more binding than just your allegiance to the school. So I wonder if that has an effect on it. Again, as you mentioned, Bill, at the beginning, uncharted waters. So what happens this cycle? They may change the rules before the next cycle. We don't even know. I'll get a Brad. I got Brad. Oh, I should say, I got a Brad picture over there that's bigger than anyone should have it there. I got a Brad picture over there that Brad is bigger in the picture than he is in real life. Because
my golden retriever out there is getting jealous of Brad getting all this publicity.
Well, he's older, and
He is
Brad's
older.
younger and
He's almost
newer.
10.
It's recruiting. So there's 5-star dogs and there's 5-star dogs. And let's be honest, Brad, 5-star dog, versatile and quick and tough, although not very big. Kind of like we're going too far. All right, let's see what questions we had here. I got to go back a little bit, and then Bill, how about this? As we do this, who's coming this weekend besides Favour-ed? Is there any other recruit of such ilk that we should be on the old commitment watch, which you don't like to do, but I always like to ask?
Well, it is a Saturday coming up with a scrimmage and all, and that means that Ohio State will bring in a lot of good recruits. Also, it's kind of interesting that Ryder Lyons, the quarterback out of California, is visiting Ohio State. Not this weekend. He's visiting for the spring showcase game the following weekend, but that's kind of interesting. I mean, he's a guy that has a lot of good offers. Ohio State waited a little longer to offer him, and he kind of thought, well, maybe they're not that interested. Well, Ryder's interested enough that not this weekend, but the following weekend, he's coming to visit Ohio State. So just looking ahead. Now, as far as this weekend, a couple guys that jump off the screen to me right away. We've talked about Favour-ed visiting Ohio State this weekend, but Darius Gray, the offensive lineman that Ohio State likes a lot, and he's definitely interested. He is going to be at Ohio State this weekend. Braylon Womack, he's a guy I mentioned that I had on. Again, when I did that predicting who would be next to commit, I was doing it mostly on guys that have upcoming visits in the near future. And I had him on there because Ohio State likes him a lot. He likes Ohio State a lot, and he's visiting Ohio State this Saturday. So that certainly is a name to keep in mind for this weekend. It's a huge name to keep in mind for this weekend. So, the CJ Santa is visiting Ohio State on Saturday. We talked about him. So that's a few of the guys that, you got to keep in mind as to guys that Ohio State is very interested in, and they are very interested in Ohio State, and they're all really, really good, great players.
Womack, for those of you who remember Mark's little Buckeye in the Sky on him recently, is a safety like Bradford. Those two, according to the 24/7 Sports Composite, those are the number 1 and number 2 ranked overall defensive backs in the entire country. So if you were to get commitments from Blaine Bradford, who's number 1, and Braylon Womack, number 2, you literally can't do any better than that. You have the 2 top safeties who are also the top overall defensive backs. And I want to give credit to Eric Turnbull here, who I think had the best comp for size-wise for Favour-ed, and that is Curtis Samuel. That's probably size-wise the best call. Kind of almost like your true halfback, modern halfback. Mark, go ahead.
When I saw that comp, the size part of it hits, but they're different players.
Stylistically, I get.
Yeah, stylistically, that's where I like. Does Curtis Samuel look like a guy who's running between the tackles ever? I mean, he is Mr. Jet Sweep. He is Mr. Fly Sweep, whatever you want to call it, where Akee kind of brings the noise in the middle a little bit. He does have some power and punch to him, but I always thought of Curtis Samuel as borderline receiver.
He was a hybrid type.
It's like a real hybrid guy where I don't see Akee filling that type of, slot receiver, jet sweep role as much, but hey, we'll see. But,
no doubt.
But I tell you what, it speaks to how hard of a comp it was. And now I feel better because when I wrote my comp, I didn't push away from the desk feeling like I, really nailed it. And you guys are right on my beat where, in a Buckeye uniform of guys we've seen in Buckeye uniforms, there really isn't a direct comparison.
Physically, I would say like Curtis Samuel, but stylistically, he's more J.K. Dobbins. Does that make sense? If you
Yeah,
confuse the
or
two,
even a little Boom Heron, you know.
yeah.
He might be a little
Boom's
better.
a little more north-south for sure.
Yeah, yeah. But like I said, it just doesn't. It's like a square peg in a round hole. You just can't, get it perfect.
He's excellent. That's the result. So as much as we nitpick here, he's excellent.
Yeah,
all right.
That is some nitpicking. In all favor, if a Key's watching, you're being mentioned with some of the best in the history of Ohio State. Just because we can't nail you as one directly, don't feel bad about that. You're your own brand.
So keep in mind, Savion Hyder also in the mix. So they're going after great national backs and great local backs, kind of like we have here. Great guys. We appreciate you all stopping by. I have to stop the show at 40 minutes. I'm legally obligated to do so, but keep it locked. Bill will have all the recruiting information that's fit to print. And listen, we don't know when guys are going to commit always. We get surprised a little bit too, so you want to keep it locked. Let's hope Braylon Womack goes back to Mississippi, a Buckeye. All right, you guys, have a good one. Nutters of Buck.